Welcome into the Fantasy Draft Room. I am Cody Smith at Cody Smith TFDR on X, and you are now tuning in to the New England Patriots 2025 season-long projection video. Hopefully, you've watched the other two videos on the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins, and now returning into this one for the third day in a row. Hopefully, as we're going 32 for 32 days in a row for the 2025 projection series. I do want to get into one thing just to clarify. After watching back the last two videos, I say a lot of the times that this player came out at like this specific yards per attempt, and that's not really exactly how I get there. It's where these total stat ends up. But whenever I'm doing these, you can, if you've watched the other two videos, you can know the process already. But I go through all of the quarterback stats individually first, and then I go through all of the receiver stats individually as well. And as you could imagine, if you're doing all of those as individual projects or individual players, individual stat lines, the total number of pass attempts and the total number of like receiving yards, targets, everything between the quarterback and all of the receiving options on the team combined is never going to match out perfectly after the first pass. So then I will go back through and I will merge, okay, well, if the receivers came up this far, the quarterback needs to be dropped down this far, or he needs to increase his passing attempts, the yards, something like that. So there's a lot of merging at the end of this process. So when I'm saying the exact like catch percentage or an exact yards per reception, something like that, it's not that I'm just randomly picking out that stat and just dropping it in there. That's the first part of the process. But then you have to go back through, marry all the stats together to where these things do work out correctly, where you get all of those completions, yards, touchdowns to match up between the quarterback and the receiving option. So just wanted to put that out there because I will keep going forward and saying that this number is what we're going to be using. I'm just not saying that I picked that number specifically, just randomly, and that's where we're sitting at now. So after we are done with that one, we'll now go into the offensive historicals for the New England Patriots. And unfortunately, this is the first offense that we get to where we really don't have a true offensive historical for a 3-year average. If we're looking at the New England Patriots, we've got Mike Vrabel and Josh McDaniels that joined the team last year. Obviously, a pretty rough year for the two of them as they're trying to rebuild this team after the Bill Belichick era. And it's a little bit weird also because we don't have too much. Josh McDaniels has been hopping around a couple of times as well. So what I really did with this team is I'm just going to look at the 2024 stats, and then I'm going to look at Drake May specifically whenever he was in games that he played more than like 10 attempts per game. So if we're looking at the 2024 season in total for the New England Patriots, pass attempts, rushes, RB targets, wide receiver, and tight end targets as well. Pass attempts led off the room with 529, 446 rushes, 360 of those being to the running back, 83 RB targets, 256 to wide receivers, and 159 to tight ends. So we're not going to rely on this one too much. We'll just keep moving forward, and we'll really dig into the Drake May line from last year. So digging in at the quarterback position, we see that Drake May, he played 13 games last year, but really he only played about 10. There was 3 games where he had less than 10 attempts, so I threw those out. And if we're looking at the 17-game pace whenever he was in there, that comes out to roughly 32 passing attempts per game. Now, I really don't think that this way is the way that the New England Patriots want to play, that Mike Vrabel specifically wants to play. That's just not his style of ball. So I actually dropped Drake May down in total pass attempts per game. And you might be thinking, well, if you're taking that next step up from the rookie year to your second year in the league, you might want to increase that number. I just think philosophically, especially with drafting a Travion Henderson type, that this number might actually come down for Drake May over the course of a season with a much improved defense that I expect to be playing on the other side of them as well. So I dropped him down to where he's coming out at 531 pass attempts per game. That's about 2.5, if I remember right off the top of my head. 531 passing attempts for Drake May over the course of the 17-game season, with the completion percentage coming in at 67.36%. His completion percentage last year was 66.6. So we have a little bit of an actual increase up from Drake May in this statistic from year 1 to year 2, resulting in 357 completions, yards coming out to 3,772. If we're looking back at Drake May from last year, he was at 6.7 yards per attempt. Yards per completion for Drake May was 10.1. And again, that yards per attempt, 6.7. If we're looking at the 2024 line or 2025 line, 7.12 and 10.57. So rising up both of those there. You've got some new weapons in the offense, obviously, both running back and wide receivers. So I think we can see a take up from Drake May in terms of passing efficiency through the air. 25 touchdowns to 14 interceptions. He had 15 in those 10 total kind of games that he played last year with a little bit of extra. 15s will bump him up to a 25 number, and 14 interceptions. He was pretty high with those last year at 3.0 interception percentage rate over the course of his pass attempts. So that's a pretty high number. He is still the rook, but I expect him to kind of be a little bit loose with the ball still. But a 14 interception, still not terrible, but it's not going to be a number that's going to set like breaking records or anything over the course of a season. Somebody will. It just probably won't be shown here in projections. The rushing profile, though, for Drake May, this is getting fantasy football managers excited, especially dynasty managers, seeing if they can find one of those next quarterbacks to break in to that top like 4 elite quarterbacks, and especially one who's so young. So if we're looking at the last year for Drake May in the rushing game, he's going to go for 54 rushing attempts over those 12 games started. Again, none of those were really complete games, but 54 rushing attempts for 421 yards, 2 touchdowns. So over the course of a 17-game pace, I put him in at 77 rushes, which I think was right about on par for what he was doing. A little bit of a tick down on the rushing attempts per game, just because I don't think he's going to have to use his legs as much if the receiving options are open down the field. And then plus putting in a receiving back like a Travion Henderson should certainly help that process out as well. The yards per attempt here, this is the big number that I want to highlight for everybody whenever you're looking. How in the world is Drake May only rushing for 371 yards projected? He was almost projected at like 650 last year if you were to put it out to a 17-game pace. And that's because he was rushing at a yards per attempt last year of 7.8 yards per attempt. Since I forget what year it is, but it's in like the 1980s. The only running back or the only quarterback that has rushed for higher than that over the course of the last like 20, 30 years, 40 years in the NFL is Michael Vick in one season, and then he tied him in another. So if you believe that Drake May can keep up the level of efficiency that Michael Vick was running at during his prime with the Atlanta Falcons, then by all means, go ahead and make sure you throw in a Michael Vick projection for Drake May. I'm not going to do that, though. I'm definitely going to have him coming more down to where a lot of the other kind of rushing quarterbacks, kind of like a Herbert line, sits at, and bring him down all the way to a 4.82 with 371 yards resulting from that, and still 4 touchdowns on the ground. It's still a good rushing profile, but unless you think Drake May has that elite athleticism upside in his tool, and I'm not saying he's not athletic, he certainly has that. I just think he's much more of a Justin Herbert style than a Lamar Jackson style. So we come in here at 371, and that's going to result with not Michael Vick, but Drake May coming in at a points per game quarterback of 18 overall. Definitely not the total production that we would want to see from a fantasy football perspective whenever he's being vaulted up to like a dynasty quarterback 7, quarterback 8 currently. Think it's within the range of outcomes, but I think a lot of it's going to have to come from the passing game unless he just maintains that crazy level of rushing efficiency. Moving into the running backs, though, we've got the addition of Travion Henderson, Ramondre Stevenson, Antonio Gibson, and Travion Williams actually coming over to this team from Cincinnati this year. The Travion Henderson pick is obviously, I think, going to lead this backfield, but I think it's going to be a lot more split, especially maybe at the start of the season as Travion works in a little bit more. And I still think he's going to get a lot of first down, second down carries for Ramondre. And then Antonio Gibson just kind of being the one that's phased out of this offense as Travion gets the true split carries and then the third down type of role, especially because he's such a good pass blocker. So that's going to leave in Travion Henderson. We're not going to go back and look at the college production stats and try to project those forward because it's really just not a useful process whenever you're playing at Ohio State versus the New England Patriots and in the NFL. But 163 carries for 723 yards, a very reasonable 4.44 yards per attempt clip to get there with 6 touchdowns on the ground. Through the air, 46 targets, 37 receptions, 298 yards through the air, and 3 touchdowns. It puts him at a decently average running back catch rate of 80% and another kind of average or above average for a receiving back, 8 yards per reception through the air. And again, if we were looking back at those offensive historicals just for last year, I know it's not going to be a 1-for-1, especially as we're dealing with a split kind of season with Drake May, but they had 83 targets to the running backs. You bring in a Travion Henderson type, I definitely think that number will go up. I don't have it increasing too much, though, because we did also cut down on the total attempts from the team. from about that 560 number, I believe it was. Yeah, 529 total pass attempts last year. We went down to 531. But the projection for Drake May himself is the thing that dropped down. So I have it staying about flat for the total running backs, but still a good line for Travion Henderson coming in at running back 24 in his rookie year. And that could definitely be something that's more of the production in the back half of the season as you're down the stretch into those fantasy football playoffs. Ramondre Stevenson is going to be our next one, and we do have the historical data for Ramondre. As my sheet is frozen, let's go. Okay, if we're looking at him over the last 3 years, 210 carries, 156 carries, 207 carries. Last 2 years, he hasn't completed a full 17 games, but hopefully having a new kind of split back with Travion Henderson will help that. Obviously, we're not going to put him in anywhere near those 200 plus carries whenever you do put a Travion into the offense. Do think Travion's going to get more of the work on total over the course of the year, but 145 for Ramondre Stevenson. That would be the lowest since the 12-game season where he had 156. So definitely a relegation a little bit for Ramondre, but 145 to the 163. About a 45-55 kind of percent split between the two here. And then obviously you have the spare change kind of parts at the remaining running back positions. 4.14 yards per attempt for Ramondre over the course of the last couple of years. He rushed at a 4.0 in 23, a 24. He rushed for 3.9. So you get a little bit of better on the offense. You bump that up kind of closer to what his career average has been at 4.3. I think that's definitely reasonable as the offensive line and the offense in general just gets a little bit better for 6 touchdowns on the ground as well. We'll see if they continue to use Ramondre kind of as that bigger back at the goal line, and they split those touchdowns on the ground is kind of where I was going with that one. Still 27 targets through the air for 21 catches, and that is going to come from Ramondre being pretty heavily used as a target back wide receiver over the past couple of years. It's gone down, though, each of the last 3 years from 88 to 51 to 51 to 41, and now dropping him all the way down to 27. You could probably even cut that down a little bit more and put more targets to Travion Henderson, something I'll definitely go back through and look at a little bit more as we go back through a couple more passes of trying to clean up these stats. But that's where it's sitting at for right now. The catch percentage for Ramondre over the course of his career has been an average of 77.8. It was 80 last year, and he's sitting at a 77, well within running back range there for 138 yards being totaled from that 6.57 yards per attempt. Last year, he was only at a 5.1, but the course of his career, he's averaged about a 6.2, and he's stayed pretty flat the last 2 years before 2024. So we've got him coming in here with a little bit of an uptick in this year with this 2025 New England Patriots, 138 yards overall with 1 touchdown, bringing him in at running back 40. Don't think we really need to get into too much of Antonio Gibson, Travion Williams. They're going to just be spell guys, I think, at this point. You've got your two-headed workhorse kind of committee here with Travion and Ramondre. And hopefully for all those people that are drafting Travion in the first round, we do see more of that split and him really take over this offense over the course of the back half of the season is kind of how I'm projecting it out. Moving into the wide receivers, the leading wide receiver over the past couple of years here has been Demario Douglas, but we know this wide receiver core has been pretty gross. Unfortunately, now with as many guys as they have, it just kind of gets a little bit jumbled here with Douglas, Diggs, Hollins, Kyle Williams, Kayshon Boutte, Kendrick Bourne, Jalen Polk. You're just putting names on the list all the way down here. We've got a total of 7 wide receivers with projection lines for them, and one that I definitely want to see play out a lot more as we move on through the season. The biggest one here, though, is at the top for me with Demario Douglas for 72 targets and Stephon Diggs for 92 targets. The problem that I have with these two is I think both of them kind of are better played in the slot. So I don't know what the split rate is going to look like between these two. If they do both play only slot, I mean, you can move either one of them outside, but I'll tell you as a Houston Texans fan last year, Stephon Diggs was really only playing in the slot and looked like he was kind of at that point of his career where that's going to be where he is better used. Demario Douglas still used there as well. And then you look at a Matt Collins who has to play on the outside. Kyle Williams, who we think coming in will probably play on the outside as well. It starts to get pretty jumbled here. So Demario Douglas, though, we'll get into historicals. The targets, I'm perfectly fine if you want to move these around. I'm not going to give you too much more into what they've done over the past couple of years just because there's so much new on this offense at the top with Diggs, Hollins, Kyle Williams. This is how I'm splitting them up, but you can split them up any way you would kind of want to and what we think, especially with this slot game. over the course of the next couple of months, or just really the next month until we get NFL football. So Demario Douglas, though, will still go into his secondary stats. His catch percentage has been his catch percentage over the last 2 years, first 2 years in the league, 62%, all the way up to 75.9% last year. We brought him in kind of middling that one at 70%, resulting in 51 catches and 11.25 yards per reception on for the projections. Is much closer to his rookie year instead of last year. He dropped all the way down below 10 for Demario Douglas. Definitely want to see that rise back up for a true wide receiver. I don't think he's just really only a slot merchant type of guy. He is a slot guy, but I don't think he's just one of those like really underneath like Wan'Dale Robinson types. Would like to see that bounce back up, and I do bring it back up to an 11.2, resulting in 574 yards and 3 touchdowns through the air. Stephon Diggs, whenever he's coming in here, from the year he had last year, only played 8 games with the Texans, but went for 64 targets. Catch percentage for him has been pretty good over the last couple of years, 70%, 66.9, and 73%. I've got him coming in with those 92 targets for 69.57 nice for 64 catches, which results in 694 yards because of the 10.84 yards per reception number. Looking at the past couple of years in that category, he's been on the decline here, and this is where I really think he's been moving in towards that slot. 2022 was 13.2 yards, 11.1 the next year, and 10.6 with the Texans last year. We're bringing him in at about a 10.84, so right along where he was last year for 4 touchdowns. Mac Hollins, not going to get into him. You know what Mac Hollins is. He's just going to be the chuck it up and get it type of guy, catching 2 touchdowns, 19 targets, 287 yards. Kyle Williams, though, the rookie, I liked Kyle Williams a lot. I've got a lot of Kyle Williams in those dynasty rookie drafts, so I'm hoping a little bit, maybe it is a little bit of hope, but I do think they'll give the rookie a shot. We'll see. This one's going to change a lot through training camp for me, though. Right now, I would like to say, and I do think that Kyle Williams has the opportunity to seize one of those outside roles as long as they don't continuously move Demario Douglas or Stephon Diggs out to that outside player. So I have him coming in currently, again, easily movable, but 79 targets for 52 receptions on a 65.82 catch percentage for 611 yards, 4 touchdowns. Kayshon Boutte, Kendrick Bourne, Jalen Polk, all kind of a mismatch. They're probably still going to rotate through these guys. Probably, honestly, all these guys don't even make the team that I have listed here. Is it's 7 wide receivers. They are typically only probably going to carry 6. So this was a room that's definitely going to play out a lot more through the training camp process as we get into this next month. And then through the preseason games, we'll probably see a lot more with this team. But for right now, this is where I'm at. Yell at me if you want to. And then we're going to wrap this team up with the tight ends, the 2-headed kind of beast monster here that they've been running over the past couple of years, but one guy at the top of it that's been extremely undervalued for the production that he's given you over the last couple of years. Hunter Henry coming in with 83 targets. If we look back at the last couple of years for Hunter Henry, in 22, 17 games with 59 targets, 23 was 14 games with 61, and last year in only 16 games, 97 targets. So we don't have him on a 97 target pace. Whenever you do have a lot of these other wide receivers brought in, that'll probably take a step back, but we only dropped him back to 83. The Mike Vrabel offense they're probably going to use, and just the New England Patriots in general. I know that this isn't his team for more than a year, but they love these tight ends, and I don't know why you would really move that far away from Austin Hooper and Hunter Henry specifically. 67.47 catch percentage last year's for Hunter Henry. That number has been at 69, 68.9, 68. So right on par, just a little bit below what he's been over the last couple of years for 56 catches, 10.57 yards per reception for Henry. Last couple of years on that one, 12.4, 10, 10.2, career average of 11.5. So right in the range of what he's been. At this point, we know who Hunter Henry is. And 5 touchdowns, again, last couple of years. He's bounced around between 9-2, 6-2. We'll bring him back up as a little bit of a bounce back to get up to 5 touchdowns. Austin Hooper, though, we'll round this one out with, I'll just ramble through this one pretty quickly. 30, because he's definitely the tight end 2, and this is very, very deep if you're tight end premium and best ball, those type of things. 37 targets, 28 catches for 75.68 catch percentage, 281 yards, 10 yards per reception, and 2 touchdowns. Career averages, his yards per reception has been about a 10-2, so right on par. Catch percentage has been 73%. Again, right around where we're getting a little bit of a tick up, but you're dealing with such low numbers here that it can vary pretty drastically if you move one target or one catch either one of the ways. Touchdowns, he had 3 last year, but 0 the year before. So we bring him in here with 2 to close out the New England Patriots. Let's wrap it up now, all the way going back through for the total stats for the New England Patriots as I currently have them projected for 2025. Maybe a little bit lower than some people want on some of these guys, especially like Noah. Travion Henderson will probably get a little bit of flack for. Drake May will definitely get a little bit of flack for. Maybe some Demario Douglas, Kyle Williams in there too. We'll see, but I'm not going to vault this offense up yet until I start to see other things, and we'll definitely change some things around. But for right now, 531 passing attempts for 357 completions, 772 yards, 25 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, 450 total rushes for 1992, 17 touchdowns on the ground, 514 targets through the air for 357 receptions. Again, that 3,772 number, 25 touchdowns, 981 plays, and 42 total touchdowns for the offense. That is all for this one. Again, if you want to subscribe, again, if you don't like it, don't really care. But if you want to, we'll keep dropping these each and every day, 32 teams, 32 days for the 2025 projection series. Again, I'm Cody Smith at Cody Smith TFDR. And if you want access to this sheet, all that you have to do is shoot me a DM over on X, or if you know where I'm at over on Discord, you can also DM me or ping me over there. I'll respond to each of those, just request access for it, or I'll send it to you DM, and then you need to request access for it. I'll grant it to each and every single person, completely free, no problems. I just want to get this information out there to the people as easily as possible. If you want to go back and listen to it, you can listen back to any of the other episodes as well. But for now, I'll see you tomorrow. I'm Cody Smith signing off. Peace.